Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the monthly RVIA Public Policy webinar, Driving Policy. Today's topic will help many of you who were in D.C. recently for the RVs Move America Week and our Advocacy Day to follow up on the relationships you made in your congressional visits. I'm Mike Oakes, Director of Government Affairs here at RVIA, and I'm privileged today to have two guests with me that have conducted plant tours with members of Congress in the recent past, Justin Humphreys of Airstream and Chad Reese of Winnebago. I'm going to talk for a few minutes on what companies need to do to have a successful tour, and then I will turn it over to our guests to share with you the insights they have gained from having conducted these tours. A quick housekeeping point, all phones will be muted. If you have questions, please type them in the chat box on the lower left of your screen. You can either type your question there or just let me know that you have a question or comment, and I can unmute your line. Here are the key tasks that must be done to host a member of Congress or a state legislator. Since I primarily do state affairs, I think it's just these can equally be done for state legislators. Anyway, to host them on a plant tour, there are certain steps you need to take. You need to set up the tour. You need to plan for media. You need to organize the tour. You need to prepare the literature or displays of your products. Prepare for the arrival of the lawmaker. Conduct the actual tour, and then follow up afterwards. And as you can see, there are many more steps before the actual tour than there are afterwards. So let's take a closer look at these steps. Setting up the plant tour. The first step, you need to determine who you want to invite and send the invitation to them. If you're dealing with a member of Congress or a senator, remember that their time is very limited. So work with their staff on the length of the visit. And for these, you will primarily work with their district directors or their state directors rather than their Washington, D.C. offices. You may have to coordinate with a D.C. scheduler, but primarily you will work with the district staff. And the final thing, make sure your employees know that this tour is being planned and when it will happen. So media coverage is very nice, but it adds some additional work to your planning for the tour. If you decide to invite media, first make sure that the member of Congress is agreeable to media coverage before contacting any media. If they are, then go ahead and work up a press release to send to the local media, and also work with the congressional staff or the legislative staff to determine if the member wants to take media questions at the end of the tour. Then organizing the plant tour. Having a planning group will make the visit go much smoother. Some steps this group can take is determining who meets with the legislator, compiling the legislator's bio and background, and pulling together any talking points on priority issues, things about your company and why you're having the tour. Create some badges so that people will know who each other is for the lawmaker and his staff, as well as any employees that are interacting with them. And then write up a brief introduction for the member of Congress. Some continued information. You need to have your information, a map of the tour route, and any needed safety equipment ready for the plant tour. Brief your guides. Have a little script prepared so that you go over all the points you want to make. If you can, designate someone to take pictures, as both the member of Congress and RVIA would like to have them after your event. And then also have prepared in advance some questions for your employees to ask the member of Congress. To prepare your displays and literature, you need to determine what literature you would like to have available for the member of Congress and whether you want to display any particular products, be that in the plant or just outside of it. If you wanted to show them the newest RVs that you're producing, or if it's a supplier, they could show product that way as well. Have some RVIA materials ready for the lawmakers, such as the economic fact sheets for his or her district and the state. And then the federal policy agenda, which for those of you who participated in Advocacy Day, was our primary leave behind this year. We will also, if you're doing a state legislator, we will have state legislative agendas prepared very soon. Then as you get ready for the lawmaker to arrive at your plant, you need to remember their schedules are very tight, so it's not uncommon for them to run a few minutes late. Have somebody ready to take notes so you can write up a post-event press release or a blog post, and have a person or a group ready to welcome the member of Congress upon their arrival. As you conduct your tour, first provide any needed safety equipment, and then take the member of Congress through the areas of your plant. Encourage the member of Congress or the legislator to ask questions, or perhaps to even actually participate in the activities going on. Most of them can probably handle a hammer and pound a nail or whatever you need to have done, but it really gets them up close and personal with it. Make sure that during this part of your tour you bring up any of the talking points you developed about your company or the certain legislative issues that you've decided to focus on during this tour. And finally, following up after the tour is completed is key to building a long-term relationship with the member of Congress. Send a thank you note to the member of Congress, and then one thing we like to do is send one to the staff who helped to set it up. Thank your own staff as well. Send any photos you took to the state or district office of the member of Congress, and send a story about the tour along with pictures to RVIA so we can post it on our blog and put it in our newsletter. And get copies of any press or media coverage locally. Send a copy of these to RVIA and to the member of Congress as well. Doing these elements will ensure a productive plant tour with a member of Congress or a senator or a state legislator. Several RVIA member companies have conducted successful plant tours in the past, and I'd like for you to hear from a couple of them right now. First, we have Justin Humphreys from Airstream. Justin?
Yeah, good afternoon, and thanks for having me. You know, Airstream has been around for quite some time, and we have a very iconic brand that may be a little different than others, but it can often can be a blessing and a curse during election season. Sometimes people want to show up at Airstream, and we always welcome them. What we do have a policy here that we won't allow them to speak to like a organized speech to our employees or to bring in media and make it a campaign event. So we kind of draw the line there. We're pretty agnostic when it comes to that. However, we do love to have them, and outside of those elections, we will invite them when we have a plant expansion or a new plant. Recently, we've had construction of a new facility. So we've had a couple of, we had a groundbreaking ceremony, and when it's all done, we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony. And we really find the local and state officials to be very, in particular, very helpful for those new projects and relationships that we really want to maintain. And so we certainly invite them, and that's really where most of our participation comes from. We will invite our local congressman, who's got quite a following nationally, Congressman Jim Jordan, very busy guy. And typically in the expansions he won't make it, but he likes to come afterwards and still see the expansion when a time that suits him. And same with our two U.S. senators, Senator Portman, and he's been here as well, and also Senator Sherrod Brown. So when they do come here, when the federal politicians come here, we actually have a meet and greet with our executive team. We give them a quick presentation of kind of current events at Airstream, current market conditions, and what we're seeing. We allow them to ask us questions about and typically their questions are, what are your pain points? What can we do to help? Type of discussion. And it's usually a pretty good dialogue. It lasts probably anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. And then we will give them a factory tour. And by all means, they can speak to our associates when they're out on the factory floor. We just don't like an organized speech. But they do engage with our employees, and the employees seem to like that quite a bit. And, we do follow up with a thank you note. I think that's great advice. Keep that conversation going. We typically don't bring in the media for an event like that. We try to keep it just internally. Again, just whatever side of the party they're on, you have half of your customers who are in the other party. So we take that seriously and like to be agnostic, but at the same time, we like to talk to both parties and express some of our concerns and opportunities that we have along the way. The other thing I would encourage everyone to do if you do have a prominent politician coming is to think of some questions beforehand that you would like to ask them, where they might have some influence or be able to answer some questions about a particular policy or something that's been challenging your organization. And they've been pretty I've been pretty impressed with the transparency from both parties that they give you and the follow-up that they have afterwards. So that's been great. So that's really how we handle it. We feel like we probably get a little more attention than we deserve, probably because of our iconic brand. So our phone probably rings more than the average company on politicians wanting to visit us. But we do reach out, and typically something that's newsworthy, like an expansion or a new plant. So that's all we got.
Very good. Thank you, Justin. And now we will hear from Chad Reese from Winnebago.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks, Justin. That was a pretty good overlay of it. And we'll echo some similar thoughts here, but also maybe a few other things. We try to keep a regular cadence, whether we're working with the local or federal or state level of our representation. And so we have continual opportunities to engage in the various facilities. And so what I would say to that, the staff work on that is the preeminent part in working with the local staffs, whether it's like I say, a local activity, state or national level. That's where we found pretty good success in working with those teams, and they're the ones who really do the legwork. So staying in contact, especially right up into the pre-part of that, will oftentimes engage as they're actually driving in to coordinate timing, because as to Mike's point, that a lot of times these folks are very pressed for time and they've been at other events and they're making their circuits. So that's helped us to be able to keep things on track. And that pre-work will oftentimes, to some of the points made by Justin, Mike, have a team that's kind of ready to go. And in that, we've already discussed what topics we want to bring forth, some things that we think are likely that they will want to bring to us, because that's the other part of the equation, what they want to learn from us or what they want to share with us. And then from that standpoint, we will assign, not necessarily assign, but we'll have a good indication of who might speak to what topic, and then define a clear leader inside of that group that will kind of shepherd this through. So one person maybe carries a little more of the water, but everybody participates to some degree. And so we'll generally bring them in, do a quick meet and greet, and then the formula varies a little bit from time to time based on where we're at or who we're working with. But the basic premise is to bring them in, and then we'll meet privately, I would say, this smaller group, and just as Justin pointed out, work through some of the things that we'd want to talk to them on a more private basis, and then open up on them a tour where we do engage into the factories and the floors of the different facilities and get that experience. The politicians, typically the seated officials, really enjoy that part of it. It gives them a chance to press the flesh and get feedback from a perspective that's not necessarily the executive level, but from all areas of the company. So, and it wins for us too, because it allows us to have our employees engage and share. So that's a win. So from that standpoint, that's pretty straightforward. We found pretty good opportunity success there, and we do put some parameters on it. As Justin had mentioned, there's a lot of people that want to come in and visit, so we do have rules around that and how we operate it, and we've been pretty fortunate in that respect that people agree to that coming in, and it hasn't been a problem for us. A couple other things here. As we are working on this, we'll prepare packets with takeaway information too, because we'll hit our main points, but we always make sure we load the staffers especially up with content to move forward and then follow up with them after the fact too. So I guess in just wrapping up, the front work is probably the most important part, but to make sure you have a good event is working with those staffers. Then when they get on site, some of the little details too, making sure we've got cold water and a few things like that available. And then we keep them moving because their time is usually pretty pressed. But we've been, I think, fairly proactive and engaging in this area, and we've been pretty happy with the results. So with that, that's about all I would have to say, unless there's some questions.
Thank you, Chad. At this point, we'd be happy to open it up for any questions. I'd like to ask one of our two guests, and that is, how do you feel that these plant tours have helped you as far as gaining a long-term relationship with the members of Congress? Do you find that you get a better reception when you do attend an advocacy day, go up on the Hill and you go to their offices? I'd be curious to see how you feel that has helped.
Yeah, Mike, this is Chad, and I can speak to that quickly. Yes, definitely. It helps on a lot of levels. Advocacy is just one part of it. When we show up, they know who we are, and they probably already have a pretty good idea of the issues that we're going to maybe bring before them. We're very fortunate. Senator Ernst is one of our senators and is co-chair of the caucus. RV caucus, of course, is very much in tune. But she's been with us a number of times up here. Senator Grassley, similar situation. As we get into more of the representative levels, we do similar work there. So it's not only that touch point in D.C. during committee week, but any other time that we have a desire or need or feel appropriate time to reach out. It helps once you've had that face-to-face and with their staffs and with them. It's certainly been an icebreaker for us and allows us maybe, I hate to say easier access, but it's easier to show up and make an ask or present something with somebody who already knows who you are, is our opinion.
Very good. Justin, same question?
Yeah, not so much on the advocacy day, although I'm sure that would help our relationships. I haven't been involved in particular with that. I believe our President CEO, Bob, has actually gone in and seen some of our federal politicians during that day. But certainly a long-term relationship, and if we have a question or a concern after that visit, it seems a lot easier to get a hold of them or at least to get a response. So those visits are really key for that long-term relationship, and that follow-up is critical. And I agree with Chad. If you can give them some information, some talking points on their way out, that really does help that long-term relationship continue as well. So yeah, it's been very beneficial from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll open it up, see if any other questions are coming in. Well, seeing none in the chat box and nobody really raising their hand, I'd like to just say thank you, everyone. We're kind of right at our 20 minutes that we try to keep this to. This webinar will be saved on the RVIA website in a couple of days if you wish to view it and listen to it again. I appreciate having the opportunity to have been with you today. If you have further questions or need further information, you can contact me at the email address here, mochs@rvia.org. Thank you all very much for being here today, and hope you have a great rest of the week. Thank you.